"Hey, Blondie, you sure that wrench isn't too heavy for those soft hands?" Laughter echoed across the range. Another added, "Maybe she's here to serve coffee, not fix rifles." But she didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just reached for her sleeve and rolled it up. The range fell silent. The moment she rolled up her sleeve and the room froze. The ink wasn't just a tattoo. It was a story, a warning, 3 names, for stars, 1 trident. And every operator in that room, even the one who mocked her, dropped their eyes because they realized the woman they humiliated wasn't just a gunsmith. She was the ghost of Edgewater, and she'd buried more friends than they'd ever made. Evelyn. Carter never raised her voice. She didn't need to, on paper. She was just a civilian contractor stationed at Edgewater Base, tasked with weapons maintenance and diagnostics. But those who worked around her quickly realized something didn't add up. She didn't talk much, never joined group lunches or after-hours socials, didn't decorate her workstation, and she certainly didn't laugh at the crude jokes that passed for humor in the armory. While others chatted about sports or weekend plans, Evelyn focused on the way a bolt moved, how recoil patterns shifted over time, or how carbon built up in a chamber after repeated misfires. She was efficient, almost unnervingly so. Most contractors needed schematics, manuals, and sometimes 2 extra sets of hands to disassemble or calibrate the specialized rifles that came through the armory. Evelyn didn't. She'd lay out tools with surgical precision, examine each weapon like it was a puzzle she'd solved before, and fix malfunctions in a fraction of the time. She never explained how she knew which part was wearing faster. She never guessed. She always knew. Some whispered that she used to be a gunsmith for Navy units. Others thought she might be a savant, brilliant, but odd. Most just called her ghost wrench behind her back. But what truly unsettled people was how she moved. Evelyn walked the base like someone still inside a war zone. Her eyes scanned exits out of habit. She never sat with her back to the door. Her steps were silent, deliberate, and always balanced. Even the way she reached for tools had rhythm, like every motion was practiced under pressure. At first, her co-workers brushed it off. Maybe she was just paranoid, maybe a little OCD. But then the combat instructors started noticing things. One morning, a Marine brought in a battered M9 and muttered something about it misfiring during drills. Evelyn took it, checked the breech, then, without looking up, said, "You were using blanks. Dirty ones. That'll clog the extractor port every time." The Marine blinked. He hadn't mentioned blanks. No one had. She was right. Of course, she was always right. The other armorers chalked it up to weird genius. The soldiers called her the mechanic. None of them asked where she came from. None of them knew that her calluses weren't from benches alone. You couldn't fake the wear pattern on her palms, edges smooth from fast roping, trigger finger calloused from thousands of pulls. You couldn't explain the faint scars around her knees, the kind you got from hours spent prone on gravel or sand. Her upper back bore a posture shaped by years of carrying a full tactical kit. But no one asked, and Evelyn never told. She lived in a small 1-room trailer just outside the base perimeter. No family photos, no friends. Just a cot, a duffel bag, and a rack of weapons that civilians weren't supposed to own. She ran the base perimeter every night, 3 miles, rain or shine. She never missed a day. Some thought she was obsessive. Others said she was just trying to stay fit. But the truth was quieter and heavier. She wasn't running to stay in shape. She was running for the ones who couldn't anymore. 3 miles. One for each name beneath her left sleeve. Evelyn Carter didn't want attention. She didn't need praise. She wasn't there to make friends. She was there for one reason only, to make sure no one else died because of a weapon that failed. To them, she was just a silent contractor without habits. To those who knew the truth, she was a ghost in exile, paying a penance that no one could see, but she felt with every breath a mystery to everyone except herself. Long before Evelyn Carter was the quiet gunsmith, she was something else entirely, something only a handful of living people still remembered. Chief Petty Officer Evelyn Carter, United States Navy, assigned to SEAL Team 4, call sign Spectre. She earned that name during a joint training op in the Philippines, while other SEALs repelled, sprinted, and kicked indoors. Evelyn infiltrated the target's structure undetected, retrieved the hostage dummy, and exited through the east wall without being seen by a single person, including her own team. When they found the dummy missing and saw her waiting at the exfil point, sipping from her canteen, someone muttered, "She moves like a damn ghost." The name stuck. Not everyone liked that she was there. At the time, women in elite special operations units were still rare. Some welcomed her, others didn't. But Evelyn didn't come to be liked. She came to get the job done. And she did, again and again, with a focus and silence that unnerved even hardened veterans. Over the next 4 years, Spectre led teams through hostage extractions in Yemen, black site raids in Ukraine, and high-value snatch and grabs in North Africa. She never missed a target. She never lost a teammate until Kandahar. It was supposed to be routine. An intel asset embedded with the Taliban had information about an impending chemical strike against U.S. forces in the region. Evelyn's team, just for operators, was tasked with retrieving him from a compound deep in the mountains. Her squad was tight. Logan Pierce, the sarcastic team lead who never let fear dull his smile. Andre Salazar, the medic and heart of the unit. Mia Torres, the youngest but sharp-eyed and steady-handed, Evelyn's shadow in every mission. The op went south. The informant was a double agent. The building was a trap. And by the time the first shot rang out, Evelyn knew they'd been set up. She fought like hell to get them out, laid down suppressive fire, dragged Salazar through a field of broken glass, and threw herself across Torres when the mortar hit. She radioed for extraction, carried Pierce half a mile with a shredded shoulder, and refused to stop moving, even when her lungs filled with blood and smoke. Only she made it to the exfil point. The others never did. The Navy offered her medals, commendations, speeches, promotions. She turned them all down. All of that should go to the dead. She told the admiral who pinned a silver star to her duffel bag. Instead, Evelyn had something else inked into her skin. Something no one could see beneath her left sleeve unless she allowed it. A trident, blackened at the edges, and below it, 3 names. For stars, 1 promised Logan Pierce, Andre Salazar, Mia Torres. She didn't need to write the date. She remembered it every night at 3 a.m. when the nightmares came. She remembered it with every mile she ran, every rifle she cleaned, every breath she still got to take while they no longer could. After Kandahar, she packed her things in silence, submitted her resignation, and disappeared. No forwarding address, no interviews, no memorial speeches, just gone. Spectre faded into myth. Some said she died with the others, and her name was redacted. Some said she went private and worked for intelligence groups in Black Ops. But the truth was simpler and far sadder. She went underground, not to hide from enemies, but from honors. She couldn't bear to be saluted for a mission that had taken everything from her. So she became Evelyn Carter, a contractor, a mechanic, a ghost among the living. And that's why no one at Edgewater base could recognize her. When she fixed their rifles with impossible precision, or when she scanned rooms, like she was still behind enemy lines. Because people don't look for legends in the quiet ones. They never expect ghosts to carry wrenches. But Spectre wasn't gone. She was just watching, waiting. And every breath she took was still in service to 3 names etched in ink and memory a silent oath. That she'd never again let someone die because of failure. Even if no one ever knew who she really was. It started like every other morning. At Edgewater, the range buzzed with idle noise, rifles being racked, instructors barking commands, and junior operators joking too loudly over the din. Evelyn Carter moved through it all with the usual quiet grace, setting tools along her bench, in the order she'd refined through years of routine. But this time, something was different. Sergeant Brent Holloway had been watching her all week, watching, sneering, waiting for an opportunity. He was everything Evelyn had learned to recognize and avoid: 6'2", broad-shouldered, all bark, and very little understanding of what true strength looked like. He had served, yes, and had survived his share of deployments. But what he couldn't stand was mystery, and Evelyn was nothing if not a mystery. "You think working on guns makes you one of us?" he called out, loud enough for the rest of the range to hear. News flash, Blondie, tightening bolts ain't the same as pulling triggers. Several heads turned. The mocking tone was unmistakable. Evelyn didn't look up. She reached for a cleaning rod, checked the balance of a barrel in her other hand. Holloway stepped forward, rifle in hand, an SR-25 sniper platform that looked wrong. To clean in some places, corroded in others, tampered with. He dropped it onto her bench with a loud clatter. Let's have some fun today. This one's been acting up. Think you can fix it? Or should I call in someone with real combat experience? More laughter followed, nervous mostly. No one wanted to be the next target of Holloway's performance. Still, Evelyn said nothing. She reached forward, laid both hands on the weapon, and everything changed. Her posture shifted, barely perceptible to most. Her fingers moved along the rifle like a blind pianist playing a familiar piece. She didn't disassemble it. She didn't even lift it to her shoulder. Instead, she whispered, "Gas tubes bent, about 3 off-axis. Buffer spring is under tension. It's been compressed past tolerance. Chamber shows scoring from steel case rounds. Trigger group contaminated with fine particulates and, probably." She rotated the bolt once. The scope mounts cracked. Hairline fracture. The 0 won't hold. The entire range fell silent. Holloway's grin twitched, faltered. She wasn't done. She lowered the rifle gently. This wasn't just worn out. This rifle was sabotaged. Dead quiet now. Someone at the far end of the line slowly stopped loading rounds. Another operator muttered under his breath, "Damn." Holloway barked out a forced laugh. Lucky guesses, but his voice had lost its edge. Or maybe you just spend too much time playing soldier. In your little corner, Evelyn's jaw tightened. For the first time, she looked up right at him. His smirk returned. "Yeah, that's more like it. You got something to say now." She didn't answer. Instead, her hand moved to the side, fingers closing around a torque wrench, not aggressively, just firmly. But her eyes, God help him, her eyes were no longer civilian. Something ancient stirred behind them, cold, clinical, trained. Her breathing changed, slowed, measured. Her stance shifted half an inch, not enough to notice unless you'd been there. Holloway hadn't, but some of the others had. And they suddenly stood very, very still, because in that single second, Evelyn Carter didn't look like a contractor. She looked like a predator weighing her options. The wrench wasn't a tool anymore. It was a weapon. She measured the angle. She could strike his temple, crush bone. He'd be unconscious into seconds, maybe less. She knew exactly how much force it would take, how to make it look like an accident. And Holloway, instinctively, irrationally, took a step back. But she didn't move. Her grip tightened, then loosened. She exhaled, and with that breath came a memory like wind across the desert. "You're better than your worst day, Ghost." Logan's voice, Logan Pierce, her team leader, her brother in arms. He'd said it once in Syria, when she'd nearly killed a civilian who stumbled into a kill zone. His words had stopped her then. They stopped her now. She released the wrench. Her hand shook slightly, not with fear, but with the adrenaline of a strike aborted. She returned to the rifle. "Next time, Sergeant," she said quietly, "try to challenge someone who doesn't know your own weapon better than you do." It was the first time many had heard her speak. It hit harder than a raised voice ever could. Holloway opened his mouth, closed it again. There was nothing left to say. Evelyn picked up the scope, documented the stress marks, and continued as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed because, in those few seconds, the ghost stirred not just in her, but in the room. And every operator present realized something they would never forget. They hadn't just insulted a mechanic. They had woken something far more dangerous. Lieutenant Caleb Monroe had seen a lot during his time on base. He'd worked with elite teams, sat through high-clearance briefings, and observed operators who moved with the kind of muscle memory that only war could teach. But the quiet woman in the armory, the one who barely spoke, kept her head down, and ran the base perimeter every night, was different. Too different. He'd noticed the way she handled weapons, not like a technician, but like a surgeon. No hesitation, no wasted movement. She didn't consult manuals because she didn't need to. She recognized patterns, friction points, microscopic failures the moment she picked something up. That was the first red flag. The second came when he watched her from a distance react to a passing Black Hawk helicopter. Most civilians looked up. Evelyn Carter didn't. She flinched, just slightly, her shoulders tightening like someone bracing for incoming fire. And then there was the hand signal. During a particularly noisy afternoon on the range, Evelyn had gestured silently across the space to a fellow contractor, a compact, precise movement that spoke volumes. Monroe had frozen mid-step. That wasn't just a hand movement, that was SEAL language, tactical, efficient, unambiguous. That was when the puzzle began to assemble in his mind. He returned to his office, shut the door, and logged into the secure terminal he rarely used. Monroe didn't want to jump to conclusions, but if he was right, then the woman everyone called Blondie or the ghost mechanic was someone else entirely. He typed the words slowly, call sign Spectre. The system hesitated, then spat back redacted. Files, dozens of them. Every line of operational detail was blacked out. Locations, timestamps, mission objectives, but the call sign appeared repeatedly. And then, a photo, grainy, partially blurred, but those eyes. He recognized those eyes. Spectre had served for 7 years, the first woman to complete the Crucible, a 72-hour solo survival ordeal designed to break even the toughest candidates. She'd passed with the highest score in recorded history. He scrolled further. SEAL team for operations in Ukraine, Yemen, Somalia, Kandahar. Final mission, Operation Sand Viper. Outcome, 3 KIA, 1 survivor. Survivor, Chief Evelyn Carter. He stopped breathing. She wasn't just a skilled gunsmith. She wasn't just not normal. She was a legend, and no one knew. Monroe stood slowly from his desk, numb, and headed for the range. When he arrived, the air was still tense from the incident earlier with Holloway. Evelyn was back at her bench, sleeves rolled down again, quiet as ever. But her silence no longer read as submission. It radiated control. Monroe moved closer, quietly observing her work. As she reached overhead to adjust a scope mount, her left sleeve rode up just enough. There it was, a glimpse of black ink, a trident for stars. 3 names. The hairs on Monroe's neck stood up. He had no doubt now. Monroe turned to Holloway, who had kept his distance since their last exchange. You knew, didn't you? Monroe asked, voice low but steady. Holloway looked up, startled. Knew what? Who she is? Holloway swallowed. I wasn't sure. Monroe stepped forward. But you suspected. A long pause. Finally, Holloway nodded. My cousin, Mia Torres. She served with a SEAL unit overseas. Used to write home about her squad. Leader said she was a machine, that her call sign was Spectre. Said if anything ever happened to her, it'd be because she followed her into hell and back. His voice cracked. I remember when she died. The letter that followed said 3 of them were lost. 1 survived. The report was classified. No name given. But when Carter showed up here, when I saw how she moved, how she looked at people, I thought maybe you didn't want it to be her. Monroe finished for him. No. Holloway said softly. Because if it was, then that means she lived, and Mia didn't. I needed someone to blame. He looked down at the dirt. So, I chose her. Monroe stared at him, trying to balance fury and understanding. She carried Mia's body for a mile through mortar fire. He said quietly, it's in the mission record. She tried to get all of them out. I know, Holloway whispered. Evelyn stood a few feet away, still working, but now Monroe could see the tension in her shoulders. She had heard everything. She just hadn't stopped until now. She turned around slowly. No anger in her face, just the kind of grief that never leaves. She rolled up her sleeve, fully no more hiding. The tattoo was raw, haunting, the trident. The stars and below, etched in quiet reverence, Pierce, Salazar, Torres. Holloway dropped to one knee. She was my blood, he said, and I blame the only survivor. I'm sorry. Evelyn looked down at him. I don't need your apology, she said. But they do. She pointed to the names. They died for something bigger. Don't dishonor them by turning their sacrifice into resentment. Holloway nodded, tears slipping down his face. The rest of the range stood frozen. For the first time, every soldier present understood. They hadn't been working alongside a contractor. They had been mocking a war hero, not just any hero. The ghost of Edgewater. And for those who knew her name, that was enough to change everything. The day after the revelation, the command center at Edgewater Base fell under an eerie calm. Whispers had spread like wildfire, but no one dared approach Evelyn Carter directly. Most didn't even know what to say, except one. Major General Naomi Ellis, commander of Joint Special Operations for the region, flew in the next morning with a classified briefing in hand and a proposition. She approached Evelyn in the weapons bay, bypassing protocols, bypassing permission. She didn't come with a formal entourage, just a file. "Chief Carter," she said quietly. Evelyn didn't look up. "I haven't held that rank in years." Ellis set the folder on the bench. "We're launching a pilot program, female special operations candidates, and we don't need a mascot. We need a mentor, someone who's walked through hell and come back without needing applause." Evelyn remained silent. Ellis opened the folder. Inside were profiles, 18 young women from across the services, all of them exceptional, all of them about to enter a world few could imagine, a world Evelyn knew better than anyone. Ellis didn't pitch it. She didn't beg. She just said one thing. They deserved to learn from someone who survived, not because she was loud, but because she was better. Evelyn studied the names, then the faces, then the future. "I train one class," she said. "No cameras, no interviews. When it's over, I disappear." Ellis nodded, agreed. The first training session began at dawn. No speeches, no banners, just a windswept gravel lot, a faded building, and 19 candidates waiting in nervous silence. Evelyn Carter stepped out in nondescript fatigues, hair tied back, sleeves down, no rank, no insignia, just presence. Standing behind her, surprisingly, was Sergeant Brent Holloway. At Ellis's request and Evelyn's approval, he had volunteered to assist with logistics. But more importantly, he came to observe, to learn. He stayed. At the back of the room, eyes open, mouth shut, Evelyn's voice carried softly, yet cut through the morning haze. "Your enemy won't care about your gender. Bullets don't discriminate. Neither will I." She didn't teach from theory. She taught from failure. She didn't share glory. She shared scars. When one candidate froze during a stress drill, Evelyn pulled her aside and recounted a story from Mosul, how she'd made the same mistake and nearly cost a teammate his life. She didn't scold. She taught. She demonstrated how leverage beat brute force, how to read a room before stepping into it, how to choose silence over bravado, how to build strength that didn't show off, but showed up during a night ops simulation. When a trainee tripped in the dark, Evelyn didn't snap. She simply said, again and again and again, until muscle memory replaced fear. The candidates didn't adore her. They revered her, even when they didn't understand her. Holloway, meanwhile, changed from doubter to disciple. He watched how Evelyn moved, how she built not just warriors but women who understood war's cost. He saw the way she walked beside them, not in front. One night, as the candidates slept, Holloway approached her beside the fire pit. "You could have led whole battalions," he said. "Why stay in the shadows?" Evelyn stared into the flames. "Because the dead don't care about medals, and the living don't always deserve them." 6 months passed. 18 women graduated, two dropped out, but not in disgrace. Evelyn had helped them realize their strengths lay elsewhere, and they thanked her for it. The graduation was quiet, no parade, no press, but those who mattered, General Ellis, Holloway, and the women themselves knew what it meant. And Evelyn, she left the next morning, no goodbye, no forwarding address, just a folded note left on Holloway's bunk. "Strength isn't loud. It endures in silence." Months later, those same women began making headlines without ever revealing who trained them. One led a hostage rescue in Mali, saving 12 civilians. Another developed a combat medical system that halved battlefield fatality rates. A third became the first female lead sniper in a black ops unit. They carried Evelyn's legacy into the field, not with slogans, but with quiet confidence. Holloway stayed behind, now a lead instructor for mixed-gender SOF prep. He kept a photo of Mia Torres on his desk, and when asked why he was so disciplined about equipment maintenance, he'd smile and say, "I once met someone who could hear a rifle's heartbeat. I never want to let her down." One day, at a graduation ceremony, he spotted a familiar figure watching from beyond the chain-link fence, short blonde hair, faded fatigue jacket, a tattoo just visible on the forearm. He blinked. She was gone, but he smiled, because ghosts never really leave. They just move silently, ensuring that those who come after never walk alone. There was no ceremony, no plaque, no commemorative coin, no speech. Evelyn Carter slipped from the military world the same way she had lived within it, without fanfare, without footprints. By the time someone realized she was gone, her bunk was empty, her locker cleared, and her file once again marked inactive civilian status. No forwarding address, just silence. But echoes don't need a stage to be heard. Across oceans and deserts, across airstrips and concrete corridors, the warriors she trained moved forward. They didn't carry her name, but they carried her. Lessons. In Afghanistan, a female operator made a call under fire that saved her entire team. When asked how she knew what to do, she said, "I was taught to trust quiet instincts over loud fear." In a base in Jordan, a young tech specialist rerouted a power system under pressure and kept a mission from falling apart. Her commanding officer noted her grace under fire. She simply replied, "It's just mechanics." Someone once told me weapons talk if you're willing to listen. In North Carolina, at Edgewater Base, Sergeant Brent Holloway now ran advanced readiness training, reformed, focused, unrelenting in his standards, but never demeaning in tone. He kept one rule above all others: no one gets mocked for being quiet. Silence might be where their strength lives. Sometimes, new recruits would see him pause in the middle of a lesson, eyes drifting toward the perimeter fence, like he was looking for someone he'd never fully thank. They never asked, but once, on a rainy morning, a young soldier noticed a trident tattoo on Holloway's wrist. Beneath it, in thin, etched letters, Torres. Far north, in Montana, there's a gunsmith shop at the edge of a valley, small, weathered. No signs, just a metal trident nailed to the barn door. Inside, a woman with short blonde hair works on vintage rifles, not because she has to, but because tools keep her hands from shaking. She doesn't talk much. Locals know her only as Evie. She jogs 3 miles every morning before sunrise, 1 mile for each name. Sometimes she pauses at the top of a ridge, looking out over the tree line, and if the light catches just right, you might see her run her fingers across her sleeve, tracing something invisible beneath the fabric. The world will never know what she did, but the world is safer because she once chose silence over glory, discipline over ego, service over self. She will not be remembered with parades, but in the hearts of those who watch her work, who followed her lead, who carry her lessons forward. She is legend because some heroes don't want statues. They just want to make sure no one falls the way their friends did. And so, they become ghosts, not to be feared, but to remind us real strength endures, not in noise, but in the quiet, between heartbeats. And maybe the story of Evelyn Carter isn't just about a ghost on a battlefield. Maybe it's about something much closer to home, in today's world, where loud voices often drown out quiet integrity. Her story reminds us of a simple truth: you don't have to be seen to make a difference, whether you're a retired veteran, a working mom, a grandfather teaching values to the next generation, or just someone quietly doing the right thing when no one is watching. There's honor in restraint and power in humility. Too often, we overlook people because they don't look the part. We judge on appearances, on titles, on noise. But as Evelyn showed, real strength doesn't demand attention. It endures, protects, and leads silently. And that leads us to a question we'd love to hear your thoughts on. Have you ever misjudged someone only to realize later that they were far more than you imagined? Or perhaps have you ever been the one underestimated, overlooked, but you kept going anyway? Share your story in the comments. You never know who you might inspire. And if Evelyn's journey moved you, if it made you think of someone you respect, who never got the recognition they deserved, tag their name below. Tell us what makes them great. Give them their moment. Quiet heroes deserve to be remembered, too. If this story meant something to you, we'd be honored if you'd give it a like and consider subscribing. It helps us bring more true stories of courage, sacrifice, and quiet strength to people who need to hear them. Thank you for spending your time with us today. And to every ghost still walking among us veterans, protectors, mentors, parents, we see you, we honor you, and we will never forget what you carry, even in silence.